Jim Banks. Congressman, it's good to have you here. I mean, they just can't let it go, right? They hear Horowitz say that none of this has been verified. And look, you're not a journalist, I am, but there's kind of like a rule. It's like journalism 101. You don't go with something that you haven't verified. And something as salacious as that, you'd want to really verify it. And yet they're out there right in front trying to present it as a kind of fact. What's going on?
Trish, you're right. I mean, for 3 years, they've held on to this notion that the Steele dossier had some semblance of credibility. Now, I think they all know that that's not the case. I mean, the IG has debunked the Steele dossier. So many others along the way have as well. And I think most journalists and left-wing figures in their heart, they know that there's no credibility left with this line either. But they're so boxed into a corner that they have to continue to protect their own integrity and hold on to the notion that maybe some or part of it is true.
So despite never having done the research themselves, despite never having those sources, and despite the FBI never bothering to check its sources, which I think, fundamentally really is the problem here, because when you're talking about undoing the votes of 63 million Americans 11 months before an election, you'd really want to have a pretty solid reason, and yet they don't, Congressman, and we've been through this scenario, how many times already? I mean, already with the whole Mueller report, and then they tried to get him via Kavanaugh, and now we're dealing with Ukraine, and now we're back to the darn dossier?
And Trish, that's what I'm hearing from Hoosiers today on the eve of this historic week in Washington, D.C. What my constituents in Indiana are asking me is, when will Jim Comey, when will Hillary Clinton, when will Barack Obama, when will Joe and Hunter Biden, when will Adam Schiff ever be held accountable for the hell that they have drug this country through over the past 3 years? And my answer to them today, more definitively than ever, is Election Day in 2020 is going to be that day of atonement to hold all of these figures accountable. But still, they're begging and asking, when will Jim Comey and others who were involved, from the Russian collusion hoax to the phone call with the president of Ukraine, everything that's been debunked along the way, when will they ever be legally held accountable? That's a question that has left many unsatisfied with to this point.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know as they ever will be. But to your point, and I like this because it empowers the American people, American voters, they can be held accountable at the ballot box. I want to get to sort of this overall media bias that we're seeing right now. I mean, obviously in the mainstream media, you're seeing it from so many of your colleagues there on the left, but also Hollywood, right? We know that far-left actor Robert De Niro is not, shall we say, a fan of the president, but this one, I got to say, Congressman, might actually be a new low. I want you to see it, and I want you to react to it. Here he is.
You have played some of the most really unredeemable characters. Travis Bickle. Travis Bickle was a psychopathic taxi driver. Jake LaMotta, who used to beat his wife, and he was in The Raging Bull. Is Trump worse than they are?
To me, he is.
Wow.
But if my kids did what these kids did, I wouldn't want to be related to them. I would disown them.
Look, I realize they're trying to be funny. I realize it's an entertainment style show. I realize he's an entertainer. But at what point does this kind of language really start to get irresponsible? Our president is worse than a murderous psychopath, Congressman?
Yeah, it's just more of the same, Trish. I mean, pouring gasoline on the fire. The American people, at least from where I come from in middle America, when they hear this type of talk from famous actors in Hollywood, or they hear from professors and scholars in ivory towers on college campuses telling them what they should believe or how they should vote, it's just more of the same that we've come to expect from the left-wing coast. Now, last week I watched The Irishman, which Robert De Niro used to be funny, used to be a good actor, but my public service announcement tonight is it was 3.5 hours too long. It wasn't funny.
Is it 3.5 hours
But what he had to say on TV,
oh my
what he had to
goodness.
say on TV about President Trump was even worse.
Congressman Banks, thank you very much. It's good to see you tonight.
Great to be with you.
All right. Coming up, everyone, Kellyanne Conway.